It was early last week. National Security Advisor Jacob Sullivan admitted the obvious, that American military assets were abandoned and obtained by the Taliban, and we weren't getting them back.
We don't have a complete picture, obviously, of where every article of defense materials has gone, but certainly a fair amount of it has fallen into the hands of the Taliban. And obviously, we don't have a sense that they are going to readily hand it over to us at the airport.
Military gaffe aside, just what did this cost us, the American taxpayers? CEO and founder of OpenBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski, did some digging, and the price tag is staggering. Adam joins us now. Adam, thanks for being here. Welcome to the program. So just how much did the Biden administration hand over in gifts to these Taliban terrorists?
So our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, we quantified the amount of American treasure into Afghanistan's military on equipment and training over the course of the last 20 years, and it was a very generous $83 billion. This year, Congress appropriated $3 billion to the Afghan military. Now, as you know, the Taliban overran the country, and the Taliban, according to U.S. law, is classified as a terrorist organization, and they own the entire war chest in Afghanistan now.
You know, Adam, it's, by the way, your organization, Open the Books, you do such fantastic work and just painstaking research here, showing the American people just how much has been wasted in Afghanistan. And of course, it's terrible that we left behind all this equipment. Number one, we paid for it. Number two, they can use it, obviously, to do terrible things. But we also invested so much in Afghanistan during our entire time there. And I want to show a quote here about part of the expenditure. We spent from 2008 until now, we spent $7.8 billion on infrastructure. That's a big buzz phrase, infrastructure in Washington, D.C. right now. Well, we spent almost $8 billion on infrastructure there in Afghanistan. Only $1.2 billion of that $7.8 was actually being used as intended. And of that, right now, only $343 million worth of assets are maintained in good condition. So that is literally only 4% of what we spent on Afghan infrastructure. Only 4% of it is now actually operable. Your thoughts about that absolute waste of money?
Steve, I'm pretty jaded. I'm from Illinois. It is the Super Bowl of corruption, but this is just out of control. Here's an example of infrastructure that we built in Afghanistan of no value. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built a building, a compound, to train 100 Afghan women to become police officers. We spent $3.1 million building that compound. It had structural deficiencies. It was worthless, and it was never used. Look, Afghanistan, quite simply, was a U.S. taxpayer boondoggle. Here's some big examples of how we were fleeced. $10 billion on an anti-narcotics campaign with no measurable results. The UN, of all people, said that they described Afghanistan as a narco state. $10 billion, no results on an anti-drug campaign.
Right. You know, Adam, I think part of the reason, by the way, that so much money was wasted over there is because Afghanistan simply didn't even have the capacity. It's not a sophisticated enough country to even handle these kinds of investments. You know, you mentioned that we put $83 billion in total into military assistance and hardware for this country. To put that in context, the entire GDP of Afghanistan for a year is only $20 billion. So we were pouring 4 times the annual output of that country into that country. By comparison, the United States has a $20 trillion GDP. You could not possibly spend 4 times. You could not spend $80 trillion. It would be impossible. So were we literally showering cash upon a society that is centuries behind us that simply couldn't accommodate it?
And weaponry. Look, we've just turned the Taliban into a major U.S. arms dealer for the next decade. For example, now the Taliban has an air force with over 200 airplanes. They've got sophisticated airplanes, 20 of them, A-29 super attack fighters. Each one of those airplanes costs $21.3 million. They've got Black Hawk helicopters. Those cost up to $21 million. Look, they've got 1,000 mine-resistant vehicles now. Those mine-resistant vehicles can cost up to $750,000 each. They've got 50,000 tactical vehicles, 22,000 Humvees. The average Humvee sells for about 91 grand. They've got 200 armored personnel carriers. Steve, we left 600,000 weapons in the country with no idea where they're at right now.
Let me just hop in here real quick. So there's this one report, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if you can shed light on this or not. There's a report that the former Afghan president, he supposedly fled with duffel bags of cash. Some $169 million is what they're estimating. Do you know if there's any credibility to this?
So we haven't looked into that specific report. I did see in the media that he denied fleeing with cash, and I'm not exactly sure how to fact check that. Look, we can fact check one of the most, some of the most corrupt actors here domestically. Afghanistan has always been a black box with very little transparency and even less accountability.
Well, Adam Andrzejewski, so great to have you with us tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.